An update on a potential AEW streaming service now that the merger between Warner Media and Discovery has been completed. Cody Rhodes discusses the notion that AEW fans did not respect him during his time in All Elite Wrestling. CM Punk returning to commentary tonight, and an AEW Rampage match was heavily edited for time. All this and more in today's AEW news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. It's Wednesday, you know what that means. Another episode of AEW Dynamite on TBS will be happening tonight live. So let's get straight into the story, starting off about a potential AEW streaming service. Everyone wants to know about this. What's going to happen when it comes to AEW and a streaming service? Are they going to go on HBO Max? Are they going to launch their own service? When can we see the back catalogue of not just AEW Dynamite and AEW programming, but also Ring of Honor programming as well? Now, on a recent episode of his What Happened When podcast, Tony Schiavone was asked if he had any concerns for the immediate future of AEW programming following the Discovery/Warner Media merger. Of course, he would know. He lived through the last merger in pro wrestling. That was the WCW AOL Time Warner merger that a lot of people credit as sort of the beginning of the end when it comes to AEW. Now, Schiavone said, quote, "From the people I've talked to, no," Schiavone responded. "For me, on the surface, yes, because I know what happened before with WCW, but I think we have a viable enough product that if Discovery says we don't want wrestling, we could end up somewhere else. The Khans are pretty plugged in. That's what's different about this era. If the Time Warner Discovery doesn't want us, we still have a business. I think there's always some concern, but we've built up a very good relationship with Warner Media." Schiavone also then pointed out how the Discovery-Warner Media merger could lead to AEW getting its own streaming service. Quote, "If this merger comes, and as we've been reading, they've been clearing out a lot of people, it seems to me that they're really big into streaming services. What I hope this means is that we're finally going to have a streaming service. In other words, we are finally going to have our own network where we can show our old shows." Now, it's really interesting one. A lot of people are talking about this merger recently, especially after the news about CNN Plus. If you're not familiar, CNN Plus was going to be CNN's, which of course is a Warner Media property, their streaming service, and it was around for something ridiculous, like a couple of months, 6 weeks, some crazy amount of time. And then Discovery just said, no, we don't want it. It's not working because by all accounts, nobody was buying it, nobody was watching it. And realistically, I just wonder what those conversations must have been at the time, because I watch CNN sometimes. I'm over here in the UK, but I don't mind CNN's news coverage. There's certain things which I go, I just really don't agree with that in terms of their presentation, but that's fine. But when you've got that, why would you then want to pay more for an extended streaming service of it? Unless, I mean, there are plenty of news channels. I mean, I didn't really understand the concept in terms of the demand for that one. So the only thing I was surprised about was how short-lived it was. And again, some people could look at that and say, well, if they're willing to get rid of a big streaming service, well, I would say big, but a streaming service associated with a big entity like CNN, is that going to be a problem for AEW? But I don't think so. And I think Tony Schiavone, what he's saying is right in the essence of, but people watch our product. People watch our product. People like our product. We make money. They do make money for Warner Media. That's why, after being on the air for less than a year, Warner Media gave them a new contract, actually paying them to produce the product. People forget, when they debuted on Dynamite in 2019, the original deal they had with Warner Media at the time to air on TNT was, we're not paying you anything. The money you will make is on advertising revenue. And 3 months into that, 4 months into that, Warner Media then said, we want to renegotiate, we want to tie you down for longer, and this time we want to pay you a significant amount of money to produce this content because it's doing so well. It's beating, at the time, NXT in the ratings, and also it was doing better than some other shows were doing on their network at the time, so they were very happy with that. So I don't perceive AEW to be in a lot of trouble from that perspective. I think, as Schiavone says, even if, and this could happen because people just don't like wrestling. Again, the AOL Time Warner is a great example of that. Even though WCW was losing so much money, it was still, especially in comparison to today, people were watching. Some people can just say, look, I don't like it. I don't like wrestling. It's stupid, and get rid of it off the network. That's a possibility. But I think, as Shivani says, because of how well they've done initially on Warner Media, there will be other networks and cable entities willing to pick them up, because especially in this day and age of streaming service and so many options for content, every cable network, every just network television, not that they probably go to network TV, but every station, every network is desperate for content, and desperate for content that is constant. And AEW is constant. It's 52 weeks of the year. It's live programming every Wednesday, plus the Friday tape show, plus an occasional special. They produce a lot of content. So companies want that. So I don't think AEW is going to disappear or anything like that. Again, the really fascinating and interesting part of it comes to when television contracts come up, which is in a couple of years, because Discovery might say, we're happy to keep you, but we want to pay you less. They might say, we're really happy with you, we want to pay you more, we want to extend it. And that's when it gets very interesting. So that's why it's in AEW's best interest that the product, when the time comes, the product's got to be hot at that time. Because if it's hot, they can ask for a lot. And if they can ask for a lot, they can get more people in, and they can maybe build up some more momentum, which does feel like it's slowed down a little bit since last year, it must be said. But as far as a streaming service, I do see it as the next logical step, because streaming is just everything nowadays. And look, that's why people can say, well, who watches AEW Dark, or who watches Dark Elevation, or whatever? Because they just want to have content. So when it comes to a point of they're negotiating for a streaming service, they can say to this streaming service, oh yeah, by the way, we've got X amount of hours of content. And now they've purchased Ring of Honor, they can say legitimately, we've got thousands of hours of content. You just that is gold dust, not dust and rose. That is money. That is just pure money right there. When you've got so much content you can provide a streaming service, they're just desperate for it, absolutely desperate for it, and it's a huge negotiating tool for AEW. So I do think they'll be on a streaming service soon. What that streaming service will be, whether it's HBO Max, whether it's an AEW tab on HBO Max, I don't know, but I do think that will happen in the future. I want to talk about Cody Rhodes briefly. He spoke about the notion that AEW fans didn't give him the respect that he deserves. Now, on Sunday, a fan tweeted at Rhodes and pointed out how AEW fans booed the American Nightmare and didn't appreciate him enough. In response, Rhodes felt, quote, it was the quirky thing to do for AEW fans to greet him with boos, while admitting he still got the loudest reactions for the longest stretches. He said, quote, I appreciate it, fam, but it's all good. It was the quirky thing to do for a minute, and as a wrestler, you just want loudest, longest. I had some fun matches amidst that noise. Wouldn't change a thing. It led us to this next chapter. Truly a love story. Now, again, I just think it's fascinating that that's Cody Rhodes' perception. I said at the time, the videos are out there when this was happening, when he was in AEW, the idea that people were booing, because Arn Anderson said some weird stuff about it as well. People were booing Cody because it was the hip thing to do, or they were booing Cody, as Arn Anderson said, because fans are worried he's going to leave us for Hollywood. No, like that's what's wild about this whole thing, and it was wild then. Is that they couldn't see the reason. The reason fans were booing Cody Rhodes is the same reason people boo anyone. He was unlikable. He wasn't very likable, and the fact he was being shoved down AEW fans' throats is he's a big star. He's a big star. You don't understand. He's a big star. The programs that he was in, the matches were fine, but the programs he were in were just sometimes insufferable. He had a run of just really bad promos that just felt so convoluted. Remember the stuff of Anthony Ogogo and all that kind of stuff, and I workshop and I focus group and I'm a big star and he's a big star, and all of it was just so annoying and aggravating, and that's why they booed him. It's the same with Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti now, because I've seen that as well. People have just moved on to Sammy Guevara. No. People boo when they don't like something. That's it. Or they don't like someone. And they can be for various reasons, but it's very rare that I'm just doing that because that's in vogue. No, they have their reasons. So I didn't understand that. I really didn't. And again, people are saying, well, they're not booing him now in WWE because people don't understand the WWE audience and the AEW audience. There are distinct parts of it. That's why they all hate each other on social media. But as my point I've said before when it comes to Cody and WWE, the novelty of him being back is still there at the moment. That's the AEW EVP back in WWE. He's the first guy to go from AEW to WWE, and it's an EVP, one of the founders of the company. It is surreal, and nobody thought they'd ever see him back. And seeing him reunite with Randy Orton and arrive at WrestleMania and all the fanfare that came with it, and his music Kingdom playing and being called the American Nightmare and having the tattoo on his neck and all that kind of stuff in WWE, at the moment, the novelty is still 100% there. But as I mentioned before, it rubs off very quick. Then what happens? In a year's time, a fan's still going to be cheering Cody Rhodes, or is he going to be getting the same reaction? Because I wouldn't be shocked if he's getting a similar reaction to what he was getting in AEW. And again, in AEW, some of the stuff he was doing was bizarre. This just I will not turn heel. No. I'm not going to turn heel because I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy and I want to win. Fans see through that. They see through that. And it's always constantly, the audience tells you what they want. The audience tells you what they want. And sometimes you shouldn't give the audience what they want. But in this case, they were just begging for Cody Rhodes to turn heel and he just wouldn't do it because I don't want to be a bad guy. I'm not a bad guy. No. And that rubs people the wrong way. It wasn't a fact of not respecting him. I'm sure all of those fans respected Cody Rhodes for his matches, and a lot of people always said the match was great. I just don't like the presentation. That was it. And I just find it wild that Cody or other people just don't get that, because to me it seems blatantly obvious. Now tonight on Dynamite we'll see CM Punk return to the commentary booth, which I always enjoy, back from, he's done it a couple of times in AEW, but he had a stretch in WWE in 2010 on Raw. Him, Jerry Lawler, Michael Cole, at the time which Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole were insufferable, CM Punk was unbelievable. But he's returning to the commentary table this week on Dynamite. He'll be a guest commentator for the FTR versus FTR match in the Owen Hart Tournament men's qualifying match between Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. It's just everything's Bret Hart, isn't it? It is funny because Bret Hart's not coming into AEW because reportedly he signed that lucrative new deal with WWE. But this match screams Bret Hart. You've got Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, who are Bret Hart's biggest fans. You've got CM Punk, who's modeling nearly every match he does in AEW at this point on Bret Hart matches involving Bret Hart spots or Bret Hart finishes. And it's the Owen Hart men's tournament qualifier. The only thing missing is a Bret Hart appearance, but he's not going to be there because he's signed to a WWE contract. But I always look forward to Punk's commentary. Who do I think will win it? It's a fascinating one. I really don't know. I really don't. I mean, Punk had a singles match against Dax Harwood the other week, which I loved. I really, really enjoyed. So we'll see, but I'm very excited for it, it must be said. Finally, we have an interesting story when it comes from Rampage on Friday. The recent match between Eddie Kingston and Daniel Garcia was edited for AEW Rampage, according to Dave Meltzer on the latest edition of Wrestling Observer Radio. Now, the two men actually competed for around 13 minutes on the most recent episode of Rampage, but in reality, the match lasted around 22 minutes. That's a significant chunk of time edited off the match, and reportedly it was simply due to time constraints due to the company only having 1 hour for AEW Rampage, which again is just surprising, but I just don't really see. I mean, I can understand the point of, we wanted to entertain the audience, so we cut it out, but that can make it tough. I mean, when you get a Frankenstein match, that can make it tough. So yeah, a bit of a surprising one. They just didn't go have their time cues for television, but I suppose when it's a tape show, you can do what you want, right? But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.